My name is Ryla Zach, and I am here to share my experience as a patient. My story is not about medical terminology or charts. It's about what it feels like to live inside a body that has gone through most that most people can see. From a young age, I faced medical challenges that set me apart from others. I was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis type 1 in February when I was 7 years old. I have learned that each case of neurofibromatosis type 1 is different. Even my identical twin sister has a very different presentation of NF1. One of the earliest signs I had is I needed eye surgery to fix them from crossing. I had capital spots, and during the surgery, they did an MRI scan just to make sure there was no tumor on my optic nerve, and that's when they found a tumor on my thalamus. So they went ahead and did the eye surgery. At this time, they just monitored it. All I knew was hospitals, doctor's offices. It just became a part of the norm to go get an MRI, do a scan. It was initially once every 6 months and then moved to once a year. Those early experiences shaped how I learned to cope. I learned how to be brave, even before I knew what bravery meant. As I grew older, my health journey became more serious. I was diagnosed with brain cancer at the age of 18, the day before my high school graduation ceremony. Hearing those words changed everything. Suddenly, life became scans, appointments, waiting rooms, brain surgery, which was just a brain biopsy to test the tumor to see what kind of tumor they were dealing with. It was a grade 4 high-grade glioma. At this time, there were only five known people with my specific mutation, which was my identical twin sister, my birth brother, and my birth mother, which meant 4 out of the 5 were my own biological family. We do not know what the other one is. Fear became a quiet companion. Even on the good days, every new symptom struck fear needed every evaluation possible. I was told that it wouldn't likely become malignant, meaning cancerous. In April of 2022, I had an MRI because my feet were tingling, and anytime I had a sensation change because of the location of the tumor being on the thalamus, they did a scan just to make sure nothing was changing the tumor. At this time, they found a new tumor. They later on learned it was an extension of the original tumor, and it had grown into the midbrain. But this time, it was glowing. 6 weeks later, the tumor had grown significantly. They had wanted to wait 3 months, but I was going to lose medical assistance through the state as I was adopted at age 3 when I graduated high school. So I said, let's do it in 6 weeks instead. And they agreed. It's scary to think how much it would have grown in those 3 months had I waited those 3 months. I was, before the brain had a spinal tap to check for cancer in my spine, which came back negative. Later, I learned that if cancer had been found in my spine, it would have been easier to treat. It would have been an easier cancer to treat. Around this time, I learned my prognosis was less than 5% chance of surviving 1 year. Treatment was not just physical, it affected every part. For the cancer, I went first through 31 days of radiation, Monday through Friday. I had the weekends off. And then I had a 3-week break. And I got my Wishes and More trip. As Wishes and More allows patients that are 18 to get their wish. Make-A-Wish only allows up to 17 to get a wish. My trip was to Disney World, my first and probably only time. After that, I went under 8 weeks of 6 cycles of chemotherapy, Mekinist, also known as Trimipatib, CCNU, also known as Lomustine, and Timidor, also known as temozolomide. My plans, my energy, and my sense of control all shifted during this time. In December 2022, I began to lose more control over my body. We were concerned the tumor was getting worse. We were unable to get a scan for 2 weeks. So I shared an update on Caring Bridge, and a friend reached out to me about a healing service. Even though I didn't really know what to expect, I went for it. Anything to calm my nerves, anything to possibly stop this. During that service, I went forward for prayer. A pastor prayed over me, and all I can remember is him reaching out to me and saying, "Do not resist, don't fight it." And that's the last thing I remembered from that day. I later learned I had fallen to the ground and remained there for 6.5 minutes, and which surprised my mom, who was videoing. She was freaking out in the back of the church. My daughter passed out. I woke up, felt warm all through my body. I had more control over my movements. I had feeling back. I didn't have it entirely back, but I had some of it back. In the days that followed, improvements continued. And later, 2 days later, the scan had shown the tumor had began to shrink. And doctors said at that point it would not have been the chemo or the radiation, so they didn't know what it was. And I said, it's the power of prayer. There were moments when the uncertainty felt heavier than the illness itself. Not knowing what tomorrow would bring can be just as difficult as the diagnosis. There were many moments of uncertainty. Felt heavier, not knowing what tomorrow could bring. During this time, I held on to a verse, Isaiah 43:2. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. It's not if, but rather when. This reminder stayed with me. Finally, on September 23rd, 2023, I heard the glorious words, remission. The scar tissue or the tumor, we're not exactly sure what, remains. It's no longer glowing, so it's no longer considered cancerous. So I can be considered in remission. Remission does not erase the journey, but rather gives me space to breathe again. It teaches me gratitude in a way nothing else can. Life after cancer looks different. Even when treatment ends, the experience stays with you. It shapes how you see your body, your future, and your resilience. I carry both strength and vulnerability with me. I have learned that they can exist together. I share my story to remind you that behind every diagnosis is a person trying to do their best and live fully. Thank you for listening. Thank you for seeing patients, not just as cases, but as people. Once again, thank you all for being here and for being a part of this moment with me. It means more than I can say to have your support in this journey. I truly hope my story encourages you or someone you care for to hold on to the hope no matter what life brings. Thank you again for